Before you scroll, before you decide this is just another talent show story, ask yourself one question. What if the most powerful voice in the room didn't belong to a superstar, but to a barefoot shoeshiner who had nothing but a dream and a national anthem in his heart? Stay with me until the end, because what happened on that stage didn't just move the judges, it reminded the world what pride, sacrifice, and hope truly sound like. On a humid afternoon in Manila, 17-year-old Mateo Reyes knelt on a small wooden crate outside a busy train station, polishing shoes beneath the restless rhythm of city life. His fingers were quick, practiced, careful. Every shine meant coins. Every coin meant rice for dinner. His father had passed away 3 years earlier from a sudden illness, and his mother worked long shifts washing clothes for neighbors. Mateo left school to help. He told everyone it was temporary. Deep inside, he feared it might not be. But Mateo had something that didn't fit his worn-out shirt and cracked slippers. He had a voice. While scrubbing leather and brushing dust away, he sang. Not pop songs. Not trending hits. He sang old Filipino ballads his father once loved. And when the day was hardest, when customers ignored him or underpaid him, he sang Lupang Hinirang, the Philippine national anthem, softly, almost like a prayer. His father had been a soldier. Not famous. Not decorated. Just loyal. He used to stand tall during the anthem, hand over heart, eyes shining. Anak, he would say, never forget where you come from. Even if the world forgets you. Mateo never forgot. One evening, a tourist recorded him singing while polishing shoes. The video was shaky, full of traffic noise, but his voice cut through everything clear, steady, powerful. The clip was posted online with a simple caption, "Shoeshiner with a voice of gold." Within weeks, it reached producers connected to America's Got Talent. When the email arrived at an internet cafe, Mateo thought it was a prank. Audition in America? On the biggest stage in the world? It felt impossible. But a local community group raised funds. Neighbors donated what little they could. His mother cried the night he left, pressing his father's old dog tags into his palm. Sing with your heart, she whispered. Sing for your father. Sing for our land. The day of the audition in Los Angeles, Mateo stood backstage surrounded by glittering costumes, stylists, cameras, and nervous contestants. His clothes were simple, neatly pressed white polo, black pants borrowed from a cousin, and polished shoes, polished by his own hands. When he stepped onto the stage, the lights felt blinding. The theater was massive. The judges' table looked impossibly far away. At the center sat Simon Cowell, known worldwide for his sharp critiques and raised eyebrows. Simon glanced at the card. Mateo, a shoeshiner from the Philippines, he read. And what will you be singing for us today? Mateo swallowed. His accent was thick but steady. I will sing Lupang Hinirang, sir. The national anthem of my country. There was a brief pause. National anthems on talent shows can be risky. The audience shifted. Simon tilted his head slightly. That's a big song. Why this one? Mateo looked straight ahead. Because my father told me never to forget where I come from. I want the world to hear where I come from. Something about the way he said it silenced the room. The music began softly. No dramatic arrangement. No heavy orchestra. Just a simple instrumental backing. Mateo closed his eyes. Bayong Majalu. The first note floated out gentle, almost fragile. But as the melody rose, so did something inside him. His voice expanded, rich, controlled, filled with reverence. Every word carried pride. Every phrase carried memory. The audience grew still. By the second verse, his voice soared higher, not with flashy runs or vocal tricks, but with emotion so raw it felt almost sacred. It wasn't just a performance. It was gratitude. It was loss. It was hope wrapped in melody. Cameras cut to the judges. One judge pressed her hand to her mouth. Another leaned forward, stunned. And Simon. Simon's expression had changed. The usual skepticism was gone. His eyes glistened under the stage lights. As Mateo reached the final line, his voice trembled, not from weakness, but from feeling. He pressed his hand to his chest the way his father used to. When the last note faded, there was a heartbeat of silence. Then the entire theater rose to its feet. The applause wasn't explosive at first, it was overwhelming, rolling, building into something thunderous. People were crying openly. Flags waved in the audience. Even those who didn't understand the words understood the emotion. Simon blinked rapidly, clearing his throat. He wasn't known for sentiment. But something about that performance had pierced through. Mateo, Simon began, voice softer than usual, I've heard thousands of singers on this stage. Technically, yes, you have an incredible voice. But what moved me was the honesty. You weren't trying to impress us. You were honoring something bigger than yourself. He paused, visibly composing himself. That, he said, pointing gently toward Mateo, is what true artistry is. Mateo's hands trembled. The votes were unanimous. For yes. But the moment didn't end there. As the cheers continued, Simon leaned forward once more. You know, he said, sometimes we forget why music exists. It's not just to entertain. It's to remind us who we are. Mateo nodded, tears finally falling freely. Backstage, he called his mother. The connection was weak, the audio crackling, but she heard the crowd through the phone. She heard the applause. She heard her son's voice shaking as he said, "Ma, we did it." From that night on, Mateo's life changed. Donations poured in to support his education. Invitations came from Filipino communities across the world. But what mattered most to him wasn't fame. It was the message. On the semi-final stage weeks later, he spoke directly to the camera. I was just a shoeshiner, he said. But every person has a song inside them. Don't let poverty, or fear, or doubt silence your song. His journey wasn't easy. He faced criticism online. Some questioned his song choice. Others said he was just a sob story. There were days he felt overwhelmed. But each time, he remembered his father standing tall during the anthem. He remembered that pride is not about wealth. It's about identity. When he performed again, he carried not just his own dream, but the dreams of countless overseas workers watching from tiny apartments, of children selling snacks on sidewalks, of families separated by oceans. He didn't win the entire competition. But in many ways, he won something far greater. He won respect. He won a future. He won the chance to study music formally. He won the opportunity to bring his mother to the United States for the first time. And most importantly, he proved that greatness can rise from the most unexpected places. Years later, when people replay that audition clip, they don't just see a contestant. They see a young man who refused to let hardship define him. They see a son honoring his father. They see a nation's pride carried in a single, trembling note. And they see a judge known for his toughness fighting back tears because truth, when sung from the heart, is impossible to ignore. If this story touched you, if it reminded you of your own struggles, your own family, your own silent dreams, then don't just keep it to yourself. Like this video so more people can hear Mateo's message. Subscribe to the channel so we can continue sharing stories that inspire courage, resilience, and hope. Because somewhere out there right now, another child is polishing shoes, carrying groceries, washing dishes, believing their voice doesn't matter. Maybe it does. Maybe it's just waiting for its stage. And maybe, the world is waiting to hear it. Stop scrolling for a moment, because the next 11 minutes might change the way you see courage forever. What if I told you that on one of the biggest stages in the world, a barefoot shoeshiner from the Philippines sang his country's anthem so powerfully that even the famously tough Simon Cowell struggled to hold back tears? Stay with me until the very end, because this isn't just a performance story, it's about dignity, sacrifice, and a dream that refused to die. In the crowded streets of Cebu City, 19-year-old Rafy Mendoza spent his days kneeling on cardboard beside a row of office buildings. The smell of polish mixed with exhaust fumes. His hands were stained dark from years of shining leather under the burning sun. Every morning before sunrise, he would carry his small wooden shoeshine kit and set it down in the same corner his father once used. His father had been a construction worker who passed away after a workplace accident. Rafy became the man of the house overnight. His mother sold homemade snacks, and his little sister still went to school. Rafy quit his own studies without complaint. But while his body worked in silence, his voice did not. As he brushed and buffed, he sang. Customers often paused, surprised by the rich baritone that flowed from such a thin frame. He didn't sing for attention. He sang because it reminded him of home, of his father standing straight during flag ceremonies, hand pressed to chest, singing Lupang Hinirang with unwavering pride. Never bow your head in shame, his father used to say. We are Filipinos. Stand tall. Those words echoed in Rafy's heart long after his father was gone. One afternoon, a Filipino-American tourist heard him singing the anthem while shining shoes. The man recorded a short clip and uploaded it online. Within days, it spread across social media. Comments poured in from overseas workers in Dubai, nurses in London, caregivers in Canada, all saying the same thing. He sings like he carries the whole country in his voice. That video eventually reached producers from America's Got Talent. When Rafy received the audition invitation, he laughed in disbelief. He had never left the Philippines. He didn't even own a passport. But the community rallied behind him. Local businesses donated funds. Neighbors organized a small benefit concert. Even former customers slipped folded bills into his shoeshine box with quiet pride. The flight to Los Angeles was his first time on an airplane. He stared out the window as clouds drifted below, whispering, "Paraiso, Papa." Backstage at AGT, Rafy felt small. Performers with glittering costumes and powerful backstories surrounded him. Some had professional vocal coaches. Some had viral followings. He had a simple white barong-style shirt and polished black shoes he had shined himself the night before. When he walked onto the stage, the theater lights were overwhelming. The audience murmured. Simon glanced at his card. So, Rafy, Simon said calmly, you're a shoeshiner? Yes, sir, Rafy replied, gripping the microphone with steady hands. And what will you be singing tonight? My country's national anthem. Lupang Hinirang. The audience shifted uncertainly. National anthems can be risky. Too emotional. Too serious. Too difficult. Simon raised an eyebrow slightly. That's a bold choice. Why that song? Rafy swallowed but didn't look away. Because my father believed our anthem is not just a song. It's a promise. I want to honor him. Something changed in the room at that moment. The music began soft, respectful, simple. Rafy closed his eyes. The first note came out smooth and controlled. Not loud. Not showy. Just honest. As he continued, his voice expanded, filling the theater with warmth and power. Each phrase carried years of sacrifice. Each lyric carried pride. The Filipino audience members in the crowd began to stand slowly, hands over hearts. By the time he reached the climax, his voice soared, not in flashy runs, but in emotional strength. It felt like he was lifting an entire nation with him. Cameras cut to the judges. One wiped away tears. Another nodded in awe. And Simon. Simon's usually composed expression cracked. His jaw tightened slightly. His eyes glistened. When the final line rang through the theater, Rafy pressed his hand to his chest just as his father used to. Silence. Then an eruption of applause unlike anything he had ever heard. The audience rose to its feet in a standing ovation that seemed to last forever. Some were crying openly. Others waved small Philippine flags. It wasn't just a performance anymore, it was a moment. Simon leaned forward, clearing his throat. I've judged talent shows for many years, he said slowly. But rarely do we see something that feels this genuine. You didn't sing to impress us. You sang with pride. And that," he paused, emotion visible in his voice, "is what moved me." Rafy's eyes filled with tears. "You reminded us," Simon continued softly, "that music is about identity. About heart. And tonight, you gave us both. For yes." Backstage, Rafy called his mother. She could barely speak through her tears. His sister screamed with joy in the background. For the first time since his father's passing, the weight on his shoulders felt lighter. But the journey wasn't easy after that. Online critics questioned his song choice. Some said he should sing something more mainstream. Others dismissed him as just another emotional story. There were nights in his small rented room in Los Angeles when doubt crept in. But he would hold his father's old photo and remember the words, "Stand tall." In the semifinals, Rafy chose a different song to show his range, but he ended by softly repeating the final lines of Lupang Hinirang. The audience recognized it instantly. The connection deepened. He didn't win the grand prize. But he won something greater. Scholarships were offered. Recording opportunities followed. Filipino communities around the world invited him to perform. Most importantly, he returned home not as a shoeshiner struggling to survive, but as a symbol of perseverance. He rebuilt his father's old shoeshine stand, not because he needed it, but as a reminder of where he began. On its side, he painted the words, "Never forget." Years later, when people replay that audition clip, they don't just see a contestant on a stage. They see resilience. They see a son honoring his father. They see how pride in one's homeland can touch hearts across cultures. And they see a tough judge fighting back tears because truth, when sung sincerely, breaks every barrier. If this story inspired you, if it reminded you of your own struggles or your family's sacrifices, take a second right now to like this video so more people can hear stories like Rafy's. Subscribe to the channel for more powerful journeys that prove dreams don't depend on where you start. Because somewhere out there, another young person is working quietly, believing their voice doesn't matter. Maybe it does. Maybe it's stronger than they know. And maybe, just maybe, the world is waiting to hear it. Alright, here's another version even more cinematic and emotional, crafted to hook viewers from the first line and carry them through an 11-minute 30-second YouTube story. Before you scroll past, imagine this: a boy kneeling on a cracked sidewalk, polishing shoes under the blazing sun, singing not for fame, not for applause, but for the memory of a father he lost too soon. That boy would later stand on the biggest stage in the world, and even Simon Cowell, the man who rarely shows emotion, couldn't hold back his tears. In the busy streets of Manila, 16-year-old Miguel Santos spent his mornings crouched over scuffed shoes. His hands were rough, his back bent from years of labor, and the tips of his fingers carried the permanent sheen of polish. His mother worked long hours as a laundrywoman, and his younger siblings depended on him. School had been set aside long ago, survival came first. But Miguel had a gift. A voice that rose above the din of traffic, above the clatter of bus horns, above the chatter of strangers. He didn't sing pop hits or viral songs. He sang Lupang Hinirang, the Philippine national anthem, over and over, infusing every word with reverence, every note with longing. His father, a proud man who had passed away unexpectedly, had taught him that standing tall in honor of one's country was a measure of true courage. One humid afternoon, a tourist recorded Miguel singing while shining a pair of worn leather shoes. The clip, shaky and raw, captured something undeniable: a pure, golden voice that refused to be ignored. The video went viral, reaching the desks of America's Got Talent producers within days. When the invitation arrived, Miguel's first reaction was disbelief. He had never left the Philippines, never flown on a plane, never imagined himself on a stage lit by thousands of lights. But with the help of his community, who pooled together money for his travel, he boarded a plane for Los Angeles, carrying his father's old dog tags in his pocket as a talisman. Backstage at AGT, Miguel felt dwarfed by the glittering contestants, the cameras, the electric hum of anticipation. His white shirt and black slacks were modest, almost out of place, but he stood straight, holding his head high. When he stepped onto the stage, Simon looked down at the card. "So, you're a shoeshiner from the Philippines," he said, tone neutral. "Yes, sir," Miguel replied, his accent thick but steady. "And I will sing Lupang Hinirang, my country's national anthem." A hush fell over the audience. National anthems weren't typical for this show. Simon raised an eyebrow. "Why this song?" Miguel met the camera with unwavering eyes. "Because it carries my father's voice. It carries my country. It carries hope." The music began softly. Miguel closed his eyes. The first note was fragile but confident, almost like a whisper. Then his voice grew, not with showmanship, but with emotion so deep it resonated across the theater. Every word was precise, every note filled with love, loss, pride, and a lifetime of hard-earned resilience. The judges leaned forward. Tears glimmered in the eyes of some. Simon, ever the skeptic, shifted in his chair, swallowing hard. By the final verse, Miguel's voice soared, carrying the weight of generations, of his father's dreams, of a nation's pride. When he pressed his hand to his chest for the last note, the silence in the room was so profound it felt almost sacred. Then came the applause. It started slow, tentative, then erupted into a wave of standing ovations, tears, and cheers. Flags waved. Phones recorded. Cameras zoomed in on faces transformed by emotion. Simon wiped his eyes discreetly. "I've judged thousands of performers," he said, voice shaking slightly, "but rarely have I felt something so real, so powerful. You sang with your heart, not to impress, but to honor. And that, Miguel, that moved me." Miguel's journey didn't end with winning the grand prize. There were critics, skeptics, and nights of doubt. But opportunities poured in, scholarships, concerts, recordings, and invitations to perform for communities worldwide. He returned home not as a simple shoeshiner, but as a symbol of resilience, hope, and pride. Years later, the audition clip still circulates online. People don't just see a performer, they see a son honoring his father, a nation carried in a single voice, a judge moved to tears by raw honesty. Miguel's story reminds us that greatness can emerge from the most humble beginnings, that talent without heart is empty, and that no matter how small your circumstances, your voice can resonate across the world. If Miguel's story touched your heart, make sure to like this video so more people can experience this kind of inspiration. Subscribe to the channel to witness journeys that prove dreams are bigger than hardship, and courage is louder than doubt. Somewhere, another child is kneeling on the street, polishing shoes, singing softly, and maybe, just maybe, the world is waiting to hear them too. Stop scrolling right now. Because what you're about to hear will remind you that courage isn't born in luxury, it's forged in struggle, in sacrifice, and in the quiet moments when no one is watching. This is the story of a Filipino shoeshiner whose voice shook the stage of America's Got Talent and brought Simon Cowell to tears. In the bustling streets of Quezon City, 17-year-old Angelo Rivera crouched on a wooden crate, polishing shoes beneath the relentless sun. His hands were raw, calloused from years of work. Each day brought new customers, some generous, most indifferent. Every coin he earned went to feed his family, his mother who worked double shifts as a laundrywoman, his younger siblings still in school. Angelo had once dreamed of studying music, but life had other plans. Still, he sang. Not pop songs, not viral hits. He sang Lupang Hinirang, the Philippine national anthem, a melody his father had loved and taught him to honor. His father had passed away when Angelo was only 14, leaving him with nothing but memories and a sense of responsibility heavier than his small frame. Each note he sang on that dusty street was a prayer, a promise, a piece of his soul he refused to bury. One humid afternoon, a tourist passing by stopped to record Angelo. The video was shaky, full of city noise, yet his voice cut clean through the chaos, rich, clear, and hauntingly beautiful. It went online. Within days, the clip had been shared across continents, catching the attention of the producers of America's Got Talent. When Angelo received the invitation to audition in the United States, he could hardly believe it. He had never flown on a plane, never seen skyscrapers from above. But his community rallied behind him. Neighbors pooled their savings. A local priest offered assistance. Even his regular customers contributed what they could. Holding his father's old dog tags in his hand, Angelo boarded the plane, whispering, "For you, Papa." Backstage at AGT, the energy was overwhelming. Glittering costumes, booming speakers, and contestants with polished performances surrounded him. Angelo wore a simple white shirt and black pants, the same shoes he had polished that morning. He felt small, but his resolve was immense. When he walked on stage, Simon's eyes scanned the card. "You're a shoeshiner from the Philippines?" he asked, calm but curious. "Yes, sir," Angelo replied. "And I will sing my country's anthem, Lupang Hinirang." The audience shifted. National anthems rarely steal the show. Simon raised a brow. "Why that song?" Angelo looked straight ahead, voice steady. "Because it carries my father's dreams, my country's pride, and everything I've worked for. I sing it for them, and for myself." The music began. Soft, respectful. Angelo closed his eyes. The first note was delicate, almost hesitant. Then his voice grew, filling the theater with a purity and power that stunned everyone. Each word carried his struggles, his losses, his hope. Each note resonated with the pride of his homeland. The judges were captivated. One brushed tears away. Another leaned forward, whispering to herself. And Simon's usual cool detachment melted. His eyes glistened. His jaw tightened. By the final line, Angelo pressed his hand to his chest, just as his father had done during morning flag ceremonies. Silence. Then the theater erupted. Standing ovations, cries, cheers, flags waving. Cameras caught Simon dabbing his eyes. "I've judged thousands of performers," he said, voice choked, "but rarely have I felt something so pure, so genuine. You sang with heart, not to impress, but to honor. That moved me." Angelo didn't win the grand prize, but he won far more: scholarships, invitations to perform internationally, the chance to study music formally, and the love of audiences worldwide. He returned home not just as a shoeshiner, but as a symbol of perseverance, hope, and national pride. Years later, when people replay that audition clip, they don't just see a young man singing. They see resilience. They see a son honoring his father. They see a nation's pride carried in one voice. And they see a legendary judge, touched to tears, reminded of why music exists: to connect hearts, across countries, across struggles, across lifetimes. If Angelo's story moved you, don't just scroll. Like this video to share his courage with the world. Subscribe to the channel for more stories that remind us that dreams can rise from the most unexpected places, and that no matter how hard life gets, your voice matters, and the world is waiting to hear it. Before you scroll away, imagine this: a boy on a crowded street, bent low over worn shoes, polishing them with nothing but a rag, a brush, and a quiet dream. No stage lights. No audience. Just the hum of traffic, the chatter of strangers, and a song in his heart. That boy would later sing on America's Got Talent, and even Simon Cowell, the man who rarely shows emotion, couldn't hold back tears. In the dusty streets of Manila, 18-year-old Carlo de la Cruz carried his wooden shoeshine kit every morning, kneeling on the pavement as the city rushed by. Each coin earned meant food for his family. His father had passed away years earlier, leaving Carlo as the man of the house. His mother worked tirelessly, washing laundry from dawn to dusk. His younger siblings still went to school, depending on him. Life had forced him to grow up fast, but it had not silenced his dream. Carlo's gift was his voice. While polishing scuffed shoes, he sang. Not pop songs. Not viral hits. He sang Lupang Hinirang, the Philippine national anthem, a song his father had loved and taught him to honor. Each note carried a story, pride, loss, and hope. Each phrase was a promise that he would rise, no matter the obstacles. One afternoon, a tourist stopped to record him. The video, shaky and noisy, captured something undeniable: a rich, golden voice that could not be ignored. The clip spread online, crossing oceans, and eventually reached the producers of America's Got Talent. When Carlo received the invitation, he could hardly believe it. He had never flown before. He had never left the Philippines. But the community rallied behind him. Neighbors contributed money. Local businesses offered support. Even strangers who had watched his viral clip donated to help him get to Los Angeles. Holding his father's old watch in his hand, he whispered, "This is for you, Papa." Backstage at AGT, Carlo felt small. He was surrounded by dazzling contestants, booming lights, and cameras everywhere. But he stood tall in his simple white shirt and black pants, shoes polished by his own hands. When he walked onto the stage, Simon's eyes scanned the card. "A shoeshiner from the Philippines?" he asked. "Yes, sir," Carlo replied, voice calm but steady. "I will sing my country's national anthem, Lupang Hinirang." The audience murmured. National anthems were unusual for this show. Simon raised an eyebrow. "Why that song?" Carlo met the camera. "Because it carries my father's dreams. It carries my country. It carries everything I am." The music began softly. Carlo closed his eyes. The first note was gentle, almost fragile, but it immediately drew everyone in. His voice grew steadily, powerful yet controlled, filling the theater with emotion. Every word told a story of hardship, every phrase carried pride. The audience was silent, captivated. By the final verse, Carlo's voice soared, not in technical showmanship, but in pure, heartfelt emotion. He pressed his hand to his chest, just as his father had during morning flag ceremonies. Cameras cut to the judges. One wiped a tear. Another leaned forward, stunned. And Simon. Simon's usual composure melted. His eyes glistened. His voice trembled slightly. When the final note faded, the theater erupted in applause. Standing ovations, cheers, tears, waving flags. Simon leaned forward. "I judged thousands of performers," he said softly, "but rarely have I felt something so genuine. You didn't sing to impress. You sang to honor. And that moved me." Carlo didn't win the grand prize, but he gained something far more enduring: scholarships, international invitations to perform, and the chance to study music formally. More importantly, he returned home not as a street shoeshiner, but as a symbol of perseverance and pride. Years later, people still replay the audition clip. They don't just see a contestant on stage. They see a son honoring his father. They see a nation carried in one voice. They see a judge, known for his toughness, moved to tears by truth and authenticity. Carlo's story reminds us that greatness can emerge from the most humble beginnings, and that courage, pride, and heart are stronger than any obstacle. If Carlo's story inspired you, hit the like button so more people can hear it. Subscribe to the channel to follow stories that prove dreams can rise from the most unexpected places, and that no matter how small you start, your voice can reach the world. Because somewhere, another young person is kneeling on the street, polishing shoes, singing softly, and maybe, just maybe, the world is waiting to hear them. Wait. Before you scroll away, imagine a boy on a crowded street, crouched over old shoes, polishing them under the heat of the sun, singing not for fame, not for applause, but for something far bigger: a memory, a dream, a promise. That boy would later step onto the stage of America's Got Talent, and even Simon Cowell, the man who rarely shows emotion, couldn't hold back his tears. In the heart of Manila, 15-year-old Julian spent his days kneeling on the sidewalk, rubbing polish into scuffed shoes. Every coin earned meant a meal for his family. His father had passed away unexpectedly, leaving him the man of the house. His mother worked long hours washing clothes, and his younger siblings relied on him. Life had forced Julian to grow up faster than any teenager should, but it could not silence his passion. While polishing shoes, Julian sang. He didn't sing trending songs or viral hits. He sang Lupang Hinirang, the Philippine national anthem. Every note carried pride, grief, and the weight of a life lived with responsibility far beyond his years. His father had taught him that singing the anthem was not just tradition, it was standing tall, even in the face of hardship. One afternoon, a tourist stopped and recorded Julian singing. The shaky, raw clip captured something extraordinary, a voice so pure, so powerful, it demanded attention. The video went viral, spreading across social media, eventually reaching the producers of America's Got Talent. When Julian received the audition invitation, he was in disbelief. He had never left the Philippines, never flown on a plane, never imagined walking onto a stage that enormous. But his community rallied behind him. Neighbors donated, local businesses contributed, even strangers gave what little they could. Clutching his father's old dog tags, he whispered, "This is for you, Papa." Backstage at AGT, Julian felt small among performers in glittering costumes. But he wore his modest white shirt and black pants with quiet pride. His polished shoes reflected the stage lights, a symbol of the life he'd left behind. When he walked onto the stage, Simon scanned the card. "A shoeshiner from the Philippines?" he asked. "Yes, sir," Julian replied. "I will sing my country's anthem, Lupang Hinirang." The audience murmured. National anthems were unusual for the show. Simon raised an eyebrow. "Why that song?" Julian met the camera steadily. "Because it carries my father's dreams, my country's pride, and everything I am." The music began softly. Julian closed his eyes. The first note was gentle, almost fragile, but it immediately drew the audience in. His voice grew steadily, powerful yet controlled, filling the theater with emotion. Every word told a story of struggle, every phrase carried pride. The audience was captivated. By the final verse, Julian's voice soared, not in flashy vocal tricks, but in pure, heartfelt emotion. He pressed his hand to his chest, just as his father had done during mourning flag ceremonies. Cameras cut to the judges. One wiped a tear. Another leaned forward, stunned. And Simon. Simon's usual composure melted. His eyes glistened. His voice trembled slightly. When the final note faded, the theater erupted in applause. Standing ovations, cheers, tears, waving flags. Simon leaned forward. "I judged thousands of performers," he said softly, "but rarely have I felt something so genuine. You didn't sing to impress. You sang to honor. And that moved me." Julian didn't win the grand prize, but he gained far more: scholarships, international invitations to perform, the chance to study music formally. He returned home not as a street shoeshiner, but as a symbol of perseverance, hope, and national pride. Years later, people replay the audition clip. They don't just see a performer on stage. They see a son honoring his father. They see a nation carried in one voice. They see a judge, known for toughness, moved to tears by truth and authenticity. Julian's story reminds us that greatness can emerge from the humblest beginnings, and that courage, pride, and heart are stronger than any obstacle. If Julian's story moved you, don't scroll past. Like this video so more people can hear his courage. Subscribe to the channel for stories that prove dreams can rise from the most unexpected places, and that no matter how small you start, your voice can reach the world. Because somewhere, another young person is kneeling on the street, polishing shoes, singing softly, and maybe, just maybe, the world is waiting to hear them.